Domain names have been a fundamental part of the internet for decades, but they come with problems, expirations, centralized control, and the ever-dreaded 404 errors. Not only that, I recently went to renew my one-year contract with one of my domains, and it went up from the original $15 that I purchased it at to $96. That is a 540% increase from the first year to the second. That's straight up robbery in my opinion, and the worst part is what else are you gonna do? But what if your domain could actually last forever, free from renewal fees and censorship? That's exactly what the Arweave name system, or ArNS, offers. Unlike the conventional domain names that rely on centralized registrars, ArNS leverages the power of Arweave to create permanent, censorship-resistant web addresses. This means no more downtime, no more lost domains, and no more reliance on corporate-controlled infrastructure. Your dApp, website, or digital identity stays online forever. In this video, I'm going to take you every step of the way, from purchasing your very first ArNS address to setting it up on a Byte React app deployed on the Arweave network. You'll learn all about ensuring it remains accessible without worrying about renewals or service outages. By the end, you'll have your very own decentralized application that will have a permanent, user-friendly address on the permaweb. Now, before we start, I want everyone to know that this tutorial is meant for all levels. Whether you're new to coding or a child level dev, this video is made for you. So, without any further ado, let's get coding. Okay, first thing you need to do is make sure you have an Arweave compatible wallet, in which case I'd heavily recommend the ArConnect wallet, which you can get at arconnect.io. Then hit download, and then you can download it depending on what browser you use. You can also get the mobile application. It's not necessary for this tutorial though. Next thing you need is some ARIO tokens. If you've been part of the ecosystem for some time, you may have qualified and been registered for to collect some ARIO mainnet awards. You can click here and actually check if you're qualified. If you didn't qualify, it's no big deal. We can head over to PermaSwap, and you can swap for some ARIO tokens over here. You can use some wrapped USDC as well as other options to be able to swap for ARIO tokens. The next part is we need to go to the ArNS app to look up the ArNS address we want to use. So I'm going to type in ArNS.app. And I can go ahead and look up the address that I'm going to use. But first, I want to connect my ArConnect wallet. All right, now that we are connected, I'm going to use the 02 Arweave name, simply because this is the name of the tutorial series. I think it would be great to actually pick this one up for the series. Okay, so you have two options. You have the option to lease it for X amount of years. You can go between 1 and 5 years, and to buy it permanently. There's two options there. Now, obviously, buying it permanently is going to be more expensive. That's 4,536 ARIO tokens. And to lease it 1 year, that's just going to be 1,088. And so, to be perfectly honest, it's not that much more expensive to buy it permanently. But for the sake of the tutorial, I'm just going to lease it for 1 year. So let's go ahead and click next. There we go. Let's just make sure that we've spelled this correctly. 02 Arweave. Yeah, that looks good. I know exactly how much that I'm going to use. So let's go ahead and pay. Perfect. Sign. All right, now that I officially have my own ArNS name, this is the transaction ID, which is just going to show the transaction of me buying the domain for, or at least leasing it for 1 year. The next part is this process ID. You're going to need this to be able to connect your ArNS name to your Arweave application. The domain, that's obviously just the name. The lease duration, that's what we've leased it for. Undernames are a bit like subdomains in the conventional domain space, where you can actually set up these, subdomains and point different websites and everything to those subdomains. And you can have up to 10 per ArNS address. The nickname here is Ant. We can actually change that, and that's totally fine. The ticker is AOS. We could change that as well. The owner this is actually my wallet address. As you can see here, the ZG, and there's the ZG there. And then controllers, the controllers is interesting, where you can actually add additional wallets to be controllers of your ArNS address. This is great if you're working on a team for a specific single application and you want multiple people to be able to configure the ArNS address. This is where you can actually add their wallets. And then the target ID, which is not necessary for us to use at this moment, and maybe I'll go into a deep dive later as to what we'll use the target ID for later. All right, this is your TTL default, which is time to live seconds, the default being 900 seconds or 15 minutes rather. And I think right now they have already pushed it up. They may have not, but they're very soon they'll push an update where you can change this TTL as low as 90 seconds or as high as 24 hours. Now, why would you want something to be 24 hours? That would just take all day for your updates to propagate. Well, there's a trade-off to having lower TTL as well. With low TTL, which is 900 seconds or lower, you get faster updates, which is great for development and testing. But the cons are you end up having higher lookup latency, which requires frequent refreshes. And so then on the pros and cons of having higher TTL, which is an hour or more rather, I would say that your pros are having faster access times and lower latency, but you end up having the downside of updates taking much longer to propagate. So what would I do typically in this case is I would continue to push updates to Arweave to test what's going on in my application. And then when I feel like the changes are production ready and they're working on Arweave actively into like an arweave.net hash, URL, then I will go ahead and push to the ArNS address and allow those to propagate over, an hour or, 2 hours, however long I set up my TTL to be. That just guarantees me that the users have a better user experience by having faster access times and lower latency. For the sake of this video, I'm going to keep this at 900, but to show you exactly how to change that, let's go ahead and click on Configure Domain. And you can configure quite a few things here. I'm going to go ahead and change this nickname, and I'm going to say 0 to Arweave. Actually, that should be the ticker. So I'm going to say 0 to Arweave. And I'll save, continue, and this will come up as a transaction, a 1 byte transaction. All right, so that update went through. I think if I just go ahead and refresh, you might see the change. It might take a few seconds to see those changes actively here. Oh, nope, there it goes. No big deal. And the ticker, I'm going to change the ticker to 02 Arweave, ZTA. Sign. All right, again, take a few seconds for those changes to propagate. And for the TTL, I can come down here and actually change my TTL actively, but for the sake of the video, I'm going to keep it at 900. All right, let's go ahead. I built a starter kit specifically for this tutorial, which is based off of the previous tutorial I did where you learn how to write your own deployment script. And so if you want to actually learn how to do that as well, you can hop back to the previous video. But we have a starter kit that pretty much has that already written for us. And it's called the Vite React Arweave Starter Kit. And the link is in the description of this video. You can clone it, fork it, whatever you want to do, that's fine. I'm going to clone it for this tutorial. But if you want to actually turn it into your own production ready, application, go ahead and fork it and you can use it for whatever application you want to build. All right, so the next thing you want to do is open up your terminal. And if you want, you can use your default terminal. I use Warp. That's just what I typically use. And I'm going to dev, cd into Arweave, cd into ARIO, and then cd into tutorials. This is just me making sure that I set up this tutorial in the right folder where I know none of this is going to get moved around. I can type in ls. You can actually see the previous tutorial that I did here. And then we're going to type in git clone, and then we're going to actually clone this starter kit repo. All right, so it's cloned now. Let's CD, and then it's going to CD directly into Vite React Arweave Starter Kit. And I'm going to hit enter, and I can hit LS to make sure, okay, all my files and folders are here. Next thing I want to do is code period, and this will open up my default folder. All right, this is my cursor browser, my default IDE. If you want to learn a little bit about the theme that I'm using and stuff like that, I specifically use Bearded Theme, which is this one. And just so you know, the actual set color theme that I'm using is Arc Blueberries. Okay. If that's just so you know what theme I'm using, so that way the colors and experience overall is identical to what I'm using. All right, my text here is a little bit small, so let's go ahead and make it a little bit bigger for everybody to see. That looks good. And then let's go ahead and open up our terminal. Excellent. So from this package, I've already written out the deploy script, and I can see here in scripts, I have the deploy.js and the turbo.js. If you want to learn how to write these out specifically on your own, you can actually go to my previous tutorial, which I'll put a link below in the description for. Next, we'll come down here, and we can see here that we have the RDrive Turbo SDK. That's perfect, but we also need the ARIO SDK as well. So next, I want to actually type in npm i r.io SDK. Excellent. This SDK allows us to interact with ArNS and update our records. All right, just in case, I also want to make sure that I have the rest of the packages properly installed. All right, let's head up to the scripts, and we're going to create a new script here. All right, now you may be wondering, why would I set up a separate script rather than just develop the script for setting the record for my ArNS address in the deploy script? Well, that's fine. You can do that. But personally, what I like to do is I like to test deployments by running the deploy script. And if I feel like something is production ready, then I can run a separate script to set the record for my production ready Arweave dApp. So I'm going to type in here, and I'm going to call this ArNS.js. Excellent. Next thing I need to do is I'm going to add a couple imports here. I'm going to use import. Oh, actually, FS from FS. Oh, I'm getting this autocomplete stuff again, just like it did in the last video. Don't worry. Let's go ahead and turn this off. I'm going to go to cursor settings, go to features, turn off the Copilot, close it down. Now, to make sure that it's all closed down, I actually need to restart my IDE. Open it back up. File. Reopen this. There we go. All right. There we go. Sorry about that. And now I want to import two things from my r.io SDK. And I'm already using different casing here. Sorry. And I want to specifically import my ant and the Arweave signer. Okay, so what is an ant? Ant is just an Arweave name token, which is associated to our ArNS address. And the Arweave signer is just going to be associated to our wallet, being the Arweave signer for setting this record. Next up, I'm going to set up an async function. I go really in depth about why we're setting up async functions and everything like that in our deployment scripts, and you can learn all about that in the previous tutorial. I do recommend you trying that out if you're very new to the Arweave ecosystem. And we're going to set a try catch. And in this try, the first thing I want to do is I want it to be able to read the wallet. So I'll say if fs exists sync and we're going to say /wallet.json. All right, the reason why we're checking this is I'm checking if this file specifically exists, okay? So it's using the file system, exists sync, so checking if the wallet.json syncs, or if it's within the root of our project. And I'll show you exactly, how we're going to get our wallet JSON in just a second. Okay, so what this is going to check is to check if this file exists in the root of our project, specifically the wallet.json. Now, obviously, it doesn't exist in the root of our project right now, which is totally fine. I'm going to show you how to get your key file from your ArConnect wallet in just a minute. Okay, so next we will write out this throw error, which is going to tell me if this does not exist, it will give me this throw new error. And I'm going to say wallet.json, not found in the root of your project. There we go. Okay, so what this is going to do is going to check if this file specifically does not exist. That's what this exclamation mark is for. So not file system exists sync wallet.json. That's checking if wallet.json exists in the root of our project. If it does not exist, it's going to throw this error which says wallet.json not found in the root of your project. Now, if it does exist, it's simply going to parse our wallet by writing const JWK, which is short for JSON web key. And we're going to use our JSON web key during the process. And I'm going to use JSON parse. We're going to parse our wallet by typing in fs read file sync and say wallet.json. And I want to do this in UTF-8 format. I explained what this is in the previous tutorial. So again, if you want to learn the ins and outs of all of this, then make sure you go check out the previous tutorial. Okay, so this is going to give us this error here, basically saying catch or finally expected, which that means right here we actually need to write a catch so we can actually just get that error to go away. Okay, so now that our JSON web key is set up as a variable, the next thing we need to set up is to initialize the ant, the ARIO name token. And we're going to do that by writing out const ant equals ant.init. Then I'm going to say all right, and we need to set up our signer, which is new ARIO signer. And that ARIO signer means we're passing in our JSON web key. So we've set ourselves as the ARIO signer in this, specifically for this ant. And then the process ID, I'm going to show you exactly how to get that. We're going to go back to our browser, go to the ArNS.app, and then we're going to manage assets. And all we need to do is look at the ArNS address that we plan on using, and we're just going to copy this process ID. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to our ArNS address that we want to use, and we're just going to simply copy the process ID and then go back to here and paste it here in quotations. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to update our ArNS record in this process. Okay, so we have our ant here. We have parsed our wallet, passed in our wallet into the ant here, and now we need to update the ArNS record using the set record method inside of the ARIO SDK. If you want to see that inside of the documentation, you can just type in docs, and you can just say set record, and you can see the majority of the details here about setting your record. Let's go back. And we're going to start by writing const ID txid await ant.set record. Okay. And we are going to set a few things here. We're going to first set our undername. That undername needs to be there, but we're going to just put the @ sign. By putting the @ sign, that just means we're actually setting the record for our main ArNS name. Later on, you can actually put in a process ID for one of your undernames here, and it will actually connect directly to that undername instead of the actual overall domain. And then we need that transaction ID. Now, the transaction ID is something we will put in there just in a few minutes after we actually deploy this application. And I'll show you how to do that in just a minute. And we're going to set the TTL seconds to 900. Okay, again, we'll get this transaction ID after we actually deploy this application. Next part is to set some tags. We're going to go tags, square brackets, and then curly brackets. And we need to have a name for this app. I'm going to call app-name. And then I'm going to have the value of the app name. And I'm going to call this a 0 to arweave tutorial. Let's just call this the ArNS tutorial. There we go. Might be too long of a name, but I think we'll be fine. All right, so we pretty much have everything almost done here, where we have our wallet, check to see if the wallet exists, passing in our wallet and parsing it so that we get our JSON web key, and then passing in that JSON web key as a new Arweave signer, specifically for the process ID of our ArNS address. And then next thing we need to do is set the record to the main domain, not any undername. And we're going to add that transaction ID, the transaction ID being the last deployment transaction ID that we have completed. And our TTL is for 900 seconds or 15 minutes rather. And then we have our tag set, which is for the app name, and we've named the app 0 to arweave -ARNS tutorial. And last thing we need is we're just going to add some console logging here so that we, have a decent experience on setting the record and make sure we don't have any errors in the process. So I'm going to say console.log, and we're going to say, actually I want to put a forward or backslash rather. In ArNS update complete. I'm going to add a little celebration here. If you're a Mac user, if you actually type in, control command space, it'll pull up your icon or your icons there. And okay, next part is I want to add in the transaction ID for this transaction. And I'm going to pass in the EX ID. And you're not going to be able to see that correctly because we're using the single quotes. I actually want to wrap this in backticks. So you see the backticks there. That makes a bit of a difference. And the next part is to add a console.log. And I'm going to put backticks on this one as well. And I'm going to say view your site at HTTPS. And specifically, the site I'm using is 0 to arweave.r.io. And then I'm going to put /n there. Okay, and that's all I have for those console logs. Now I want to console log if there is an error. And I'm going to say console.error. And we're going to say in our error, failed to update ArNS. And I want it to also print the error for me. And then because of the error, I wanted to kill the process by writing process.exit 1. Okay. Last but not least, we'll just use update ArNS. Wrap that. Excellent. We are all done writing out our script for ArNS. So the next thing we need to go do is go to package.json. And we actually need to write in a new script in here. We're going to call this, make sure we have a comma here, and say ArNS. And what this is going to specifically do is say node scripts arns.js. Excellent. Okay, so let's go ahead and get our wallet.json or our key file from our rconnect wallet. So we'll go here and I'm going to pull up my rconnect wallet here, and I can find my key file by clicking here, hitting settings, going to all settings, and then export key file. And I can click here. It'll ask me for my password. Oop. Okay, so we've downloaded our key file. I can now go to my desktop, get rid of my terminal, and I can pull up my Finder. In my downloads, I have this new key file here. I'm going to rename it wallet.json. Okay, now we can take our wallet.json, drag and drop it in the root of our project. Okay, that's going to show our key here. Obviously, I have this blacked out so nobody can see the contents of my key file, but this is what we want, is wallet.json here. Notice that it's grayed out for me. It needs to be grayed out for you, okay? So if it's not grayed out for you, the next thing you need to do is go to git ignore, come over here, make sure wallet.json is there for you. If it's not, add it in. If it is, and you still don't see it grayed out, what you need to do is actually go to terminal and then type in git init, and that will initialize it and gray it out for you. Okay, so now that we have our wallet, let's go ahead and run our application to see what the front end looks like. Run dev. Let's pull this up. Okay, so this looks really, really generic. That's totally fine. I'm not doing a full tutorial this time. I'm just showing how to update your ArNS address, but I do want to just make some sort of difference here. So let's go ahead and go to our source, go to app.js X, and I'm going to remove the counter, and I want to remove these logos. I don't need these logos. And I'm just going to remove all of this here as well. Let's get rid of the links. And I just want to write in the name of my application here. I'm going to call this 02 ARIO. Excellent. I'll hit save. And fun fact, what you can do is you can actually click here and type in simple browser. And I'll type in HTTP localhost 5173. Okay, excellent. So it looks like it's working as intended. I can see that all the changes are there. It says 02 ARIO. And if I want, I can add in like an H2 tag here. And I'll just say ArNS set record tutorial. There we go. All right, so the changes are set. Now let's go ahead and deploy this to ARIO. This is very simple. What we'll be doing is we will be closing the application and we're going to type in npm run deploy. What that does is it's going to go through the exact same scripts that we built in our previous tutorial, which is the deploy.js and the turbo.js for us, okay? Let's go ahead and hit enter. Now, if you get an error for this, make sure you have some turbo credits. If you don't have any turbo credits in your ArConnect wallet, then you're going to run into the error that you don't have any credits. And what you can do is just head over to turbo-topup.com to get some turbo credits. It's very, very cheap in order to do deployments with small applications on the Arweave network. So don't worry about this getting super expensive. Okay, so we ran into this error here, and it's because we skipped a critical step here, and that critical step is to actually run and build our application. There we go. That sets up our dist folder. That's super important because if we go down to turbo.js, we really need the deploy folder. That's what our application is being deployed from, is our build folder, which is the ./dist folder, okay? And now that we've built our application, we can now run npm run deploy. Excellent. So now we have this hash here. I'm going to copy this before I open up the link and Command C. And then I'm going to actually open this up by hitting Command click. Open it. And now our application is live on the Arweave network. This is a live URL on the Arweave network, but this URL is crazy. Like if you sent this to somebody's thinking, yeah, you're going to hack me for sure. But no, don't worry about that because we're going to connect our ArNS address now. So I'm actually going to copy this. Transaction ID is super important. This hash rather is super important. Go to ArNS and I'm going to put it inside of this transaction ID here. Paste. Perfect. Save. Make sure you save the folder. And now that we are all set up, we can go ahead and type in npm run ArNS. Oh, we got an error here. That error says new Arweave signer is not defined. And that's my fault because we need to have a space here in new Arweave signer JWK. Okay. Hit save. Let's do this again. Second time's the charm. Excellent. So now we have our transaction ID. The ArNS update is complete, and we can now look at the website. I'll click here. And it's already live. 0 to Arweave, ArNS set record tutorial. I'm clicking here and I can see that it says 0 to arweave.r.io. And that's it, guys. You now have a permanent application. If you bought the domain to be permanent, where you own it in perpetuity, then you would actually be able to have this website forever to this ArNS domain. So I'm super excited for anybody to go through this tutorial, set up their ArNS address and build out their own portfolio or their own application, whatever you want to build. For the next tutorial, I want to hear what you guys want. What do you want to learn to build? What troubles are you guys running into as you're building applications in the Arweave ecosystem? Let me know in the comments below, and that very well may be the next tutorial. That's it for this tutorial. I'll see you on the road to mainnet.